Welcome back, students, to the second part of life process chapter. In this video we are going to discuss about nutrition in animals. So the type of nutrition in animals as discussed in the last video is heterotrophic nutrition. The word heterotroph has a Greek origin. Heteros means other and trophy means nutrition. So they are organisms who depend on other organisms for their food. Coming to the next slide, it shows the different types of heterotrophic nutrition which we have already discussed: holozoic nutrition, saprophytic and parasitic. Holozoic nutrition involves organisms who feed on solid organic matter which is taken inside and then digested. For example, human beings, amoeba and other animals. Saprophytic organisms include those organisms which feed on dead and decaying matter, which includes some bacteria, fungus, etc. Parasitic organisms include those who lives on other living organism. They obtain entire nutrition from the other living organism. That organism is known as the host. For example, tapeworm, hookworm, lice, fleas, etc. Heterotrophs can again be divided into groups based on what they eat. For example, herbivore, carnivore and omnivore. Herbivores are animals that feed only on plants. Carnivores are animals that eat mostly on meat. Omnivores, they are animals that eat on plants and meat of other animals. Now moving to holozoic nutrition. In holozoic nutrition, organic substances are taken inside the body without being decomposed. After intake, the food is digested by enzymes. The digested food is absorbed into the body cells. The absorbed food is used to produce energy, and the undigested food is removed from the body. Now we can brief out the various steps of holozoic nutrition. The first step is ingestion. The process of taking in of food is known as ingestion. Second step is digestion, the process of breaking complex food substances into simple forms. Then third, absorption. It is a process of absorbing the digested food. Next step, assimilation, the process of utilization of the digested food for energy, growth and repair. Last step, ejection, the process of removing undigested food from the body. Now we can go to study about holozoic nutrition in lower organisms. Example, amoeba. Amoeba is a unicellular organism. Now in this diagram you can see the first step, injection. You can see that amoeba pushes out the pseudopodia to encircle the food, and it then engulfs the food, forming a food vacuole. This process is known as phagocytosis. Pseudopodia is also known as false feet. Now coming to the second step, digestion. The food vacuoles are transported into the cell with the help of digestive enzymes. Digestion takes place. Larger particles are broken down into simple molecules. Then third step, absorption. The nutrients from the digested food are absorbed into the cell's cytoplasm. Excess food is stored in the form of glycogen. The undigested food particles are left behind. Next step, assimilation. It is a process of obtaining energy from the absorbed food molecules. And the last step, egestion, the process of excretion of undigested food by rupturing the cell membrane. These are the various steps in nutrition in amoeba. Moving on to the multicellular organisms, we are going to about nutrition in human beings. The alimentary canal and the glands associated with digestion constitute the human digestive system. It measures about 8 to 10 meters in length. It extends from mouth to the anus. This picture shows the digestive system of human beings. Here you can see all the parts starting from mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum and anus, along with the glands like salivary gland, liver and pancreas. We will be discussing about each part separately. Mouth is the first part of alimentary canal. Ingestion of food is done by the mouth. Mouth consists of oral cavity, which is also known as buccal cavity. It contains gums, teeth, tongue and muscles. It is bounded by cheeks and lips. Starch digestion also starts in the mouth. Now in this slide you can see the diagram showing the different parts of the buccal cavity or the oral cavity. In the second part of the diagram you can see the three pairs of salivary glands, sublingual, submandibular and parotid gland. Now moving on to the next slide, which explains the functions of teeth like biting, cutting, tearing, chewing and masticating the food. Now coming on to functions of tongue, tasting of food, rolling of food into bolus. Actually bolus is a small rounded mass of chewed food. Mixing the food with saliva, swallowing and pushing down the food to the esophagus. Now coming to functions of salivary gland. It is a gland associated with the mouth. It produces saliva. Saliva contains salivary amylase, which is the enzyme, and mucin. Mucin helps to lubricate the food and the mouth. Salivary amylase is an enzyme which converts starch into sugar. Now here you can see the action of salivary amylase. The enzyme is the amylase and the substrate is starch. Then reaction happens, enzyme and the substrate get joined together. Then the end product is sugar which is released. The next slide shows the pharynx, which is also known as the throat. This colored region is the pharynx. So you can see that it is connected to the nasal cavity and the oral cavity. Now moving on. Now coming to the next part of alimentary canal, esophagus. It is a muscular and tubular structure. The muscular walls of the esophagus moves in a rhythmic manner which carries food down to the stomach. This movement is known as peristalsis. In the next slide you can see esophagus along with that contracted and relaxed muscles. This diagram shows how peristaltic movement takes place in the esophagus. So this helps to move the food from the mouth to the stomach. Now moving on to the next part of alimentary canal, the stomach. Now in this diagram you can see the different parts of stomach. The stomach has three main parts. The first part is the cardia, then the fundus and the pylorus. Now stomach is a sac-like J-shaped muscular structure. Partial digestion takes place here. Inner lining of the stomach has sunken pits. The pits have gastric glands which secrete gastric juice. The gastric juice contains hydrochloric acid, mucus and propepsin, which is the inactive form of the enzyme pepsin. Stomach is also a storehouse of food. Now moving on to the function of hydrochloric acid, it kills bacteria in the food, converts propepsin into pepsin enzyme, provides acidic media for pepsin to work, stops digestion of starch. Next is functions of mucus, protects inner lining of stomach from hydrochloric acid, helps in easy movement of food into the small intestine. Now here you can see the action of pepsin. Pepsinogen is activated by hydrochloric acid, which converts it into pepsin. Pepsin converts protein into peptides or peptones. Now we move into the next part, the small intestine. Now in this diagram, you can see the different parts of small intestine. The first part, which is associated with the stomach, is duodenum. Next is jejunum, and the last one is ileum. So three parts are there: duodenum, jejunum and ileum. Duodenum is the first part. It receives secretion from liver and pancreas. Jejunum is the middle part. It helps in absorption of sugar, fatty acid and amino acid. Ileum is the last part. It has finger-like projections called villi, which helps in absorption. Now moving to the associate gland of small intestine, the liver. Now in this diagram you can see liver has two lobes, the right lobe and the left lobe. The right lobe is bigger than the left lobe. You can see the gallbladder and the hepatic duct. Liver is the largest gland. It secretes bile juice. Bile is stored in the gallbladder. Function of bile: it emulsifies fat. It makes food basic. The food coming from the stomach is acidic in nature. Intestinal enzymes require basic medium to function. Tiny fat droplets are easy to digest. Now here you can see the process of emulsification. It is just breaking down of big fat droplets into smaller droplets. Now moving to the next associate gland, pancreas. Pancreas is a leaf-like gland which is very near to the liver and the duodenum. You can see that in this diagram. You can see the pancreas and the pancreatic duct. You also see the duodenum here and the liver. Now moving to speak about pancreas. It is both endocrine and exocrine gland. It secretes pancreatic juice and it contains amylase, lipase and trypsin. Now this shows the action of amylase, trypsin and lipase. Amylase acts on starch molecule, converting it to sugar molecules. Trypsin acts upon proteins, converting it to peptides, and lipase acts upon fat molecules, converting it into glycerol and fatty acids. Glands present in intestine is called intestinal glands. They produce intestinal juice which also contain enzymes. Digestion gets completed in the small intestine. Absorption starts and ends in small intestine. Now this is the diagram of villi which is present in the ileum part of the small intestine. Here you can see the thin epithelial tissues, the blood capillary, arteries and the veins. Villi are tiny finger-like structures in the lining of small intestine. It is only one cell thick. Nutrients in the small intestine diffuse through the cells in the walls of the villi into the capillaries inside the villi. Simple sugars and proteins are absorbed into the inner lining. Fatty acids and glycerol go to lymphatic system. Villi increases the surface area for absorption. The extra food is stored as glycogen. Now the last part of alimentary canal, the large intestine. In this diagram, you can see the different parts of large intestine. You can see the colon, the ascending colon which is moving upwards, then the transverse colon, the descending colon which is coming down, then you have a S-shaped colon which is known as the sigmoid colon. After that, you can see the rectum, and the opening is the anus. Now if you see the ascending colon, here you can see a small projection which is known as the appendix. The liquid matter with little nutrients move to the large intestines. No digestion takes place, only reabsorption of excess water takes place in the large intestine. Large intestine contains bacteria that release vitamin B and K, which is getting absorbed. Here movement of food takes place to peristalsis. Now this is a diagram of rectum where the undigested food material is stored. You can see the opening anus and the sphincter muscles which are guarding the anus, the exterior and the interior sphincter muscles. Now colon opens into rectum, stores and concentrates fecus, sends signals to brain, triggers need for bowel movement, and fecus exits through anus. Anus is guarded by the sphincter muscles. Egestion is done by anus. So that is the last step of digestion or nutrition in human beings. Now about the small intestines in herbivores. Small intestine is the largest part of the alimentary canal. It is narrow and arranged in coils. The length of the small intestine differs depending on the food. Herbivores need more time for digestion because they take in cellulose. So herbivores have longer small intestine. Now this flowchart shows the entire movement of food in the digestive system. It starts with the mouth where ingestion takes place, and mechanical and chemical digestion also starts in the mouth. Then it passes to the esophagus to the stomach, and that movement is known as peristaltic movement. In the stomach, mechanical digestion and chemical digestion takes place, that is digestion of protein takes place in the stomach. Then the food moves to the small intestine where complete digestion takes place along with absorption. In the large intestine, no digestion, only absorption of water takes place. Now after that, the undigested food is moved to the rectum, it is stored there and it is removed with the help of anus. That is the last step. Now we have come to the end of the video about nutrition in animals. Thank you all for watching.